This is Starlight Express, written by G.S. Jennsen, narrated by Pyper Down. 6 months after the displacement transported humanity to a universe teeming with advanced alien civilizations, they're working diligently to settle into their strange new world. Diplomatic relations with the other species are proceeding in fits and starts, and peace hangs by a tenuous thread. But in the meantime, for most of humanity, life goes on. Orbital Station Nuptials 3, Phoenix Dwarf Galaxy, Amaranthe.
How did this happen to us again?
From his position, slumped dejectedly on the opposite bench in the cell, Noah Taraj scowled. That's not a fair question. Last time we didn't get arrested. Caleb Morano dropped his head back against the smooth, cool, fabbed glass wall behind him.
Only because we nearly died of hypothermia hiding from the authorities.
Successfully hiding. The point is, we didn't die, and we didn't get arrested.
Last time. This time we're 0 for 1 so far, and,
hey, I wonder if the Novolume practice capital punishment. Screw capital punishment. I'm getting married 7 galaxies away in 6 hours, and if I'm not in that cathedral on time, my lovely, exquisite wife-to-be is gonna kill me far more thoroughly than the Novolume justice system ever dreamed of accomplishing. Caleb nodded sagely.
Then I guess we'd better see about executing ourselves a jailbreak.
Seattle, Earth, Milky Way Galaxy, 9 hours earlier. Caleb was heating up dinner for himself when the door chimed. He glanced toward the entry in surprise. Alex was already in Houston helping Kennedy with wedding preparations, but he wasn't due to report for duty until the morning, and he hadn't been expecting any visitors. A rare night to himself at the loft, or so he'd thought. He opened the door to find Noah Taraj standing in the hallway, hands stuffed in the pockets of his work pants, shuffling his weight from one foot to the other. Caleb stepped to the side so Noah could come in.
Why aren't you in Houston?
I, told Kennedy I need a few hours break from all the frantic running around in circles and pushy relatives asking invasive questions and the rest of the insanity.
Cold feet, huh?
No. Yes, I don't know. I want to get married. Or rather, I want to spend the rest of my life with Kennedy, whatever societal ritual it requires, but, damn, do I wish I'd insisted on eloping. Or on a quiet little ceremony at some remote mountain cabin, the way you and Alex did. Noah's eyes grew wide as he stared at Caleb. The man genuinely did look shell-shocked. I am about to pop like over-pressurized champagne, man. I feel like I said no to a bachelor party and I meant it. But I don't suppose we can go get a beer or something? Chill out for a couple of hours so I don't lose my mind? Caleb leaned on the kitchen counter and pondered his friend's request. It would be easy enough for them to go down the street to Seaview Tap and knock back a few, and Noah said this was all he needed. But, Caleb realized, he found he wouldn't mind venturing farther afield. Other than occasional trips like this one to Earth and to Seneca since the displacement, since he'd died and been reborn with the help of a Kesso, a sentient planet who was now a permanent part of him, heart and soul, he'd stuck close to home. Afraid the spell was going to wear off if he ventured too many parsecs away, maybe? Or maybe he was simply at a loss for how to be alive again. This presented an excellent opportunity to push those boundaries and see if he could remember. If you're game, a friend told me about this orbital station above Nuptials that offers the ultimate in Novolume entertainment. Do I want to know what that means? You tell me. After tonight, it could be a while before you get another chance to find out. Noah made a face, but nodded. I'm game, but this is not a bachelor party, and I am not sleeping with some weird shimmery Novolume hooker, or any of the fairies either. If I get too drunk, remind me how I'm not doing any of those things.
I've got your back.
Thank you. I've got the Callisto for the night. Kennedy installed a wormhole drive on it last month so we can be at, where's the Novolume homeworld located?
Phoenix Dwarf Galaxy.
Right. We can be wherever that is, in a flash. As he slid on his jacket and followed Noah out the door, he sent his wife a message.
Noah and I are headed to grab some beers to settle his nerves. I'll see you in the morning.
Jealousy, thy name is me. I haven't seen Kennedy this worked up since grad school exams, and I honestly might punch her mother the next time I see her. Don't do it, baby.
Oh, fine. Thankfully, Mia got here a few minutes ago. She's already working her diplomat charm like a champ, so hopefully tempers will cool off soon. Have fun, but make absolutely certain you get him here by 9 tomorrow, no matter what.
Promise.
Orbital Station, Noprius 3, Phoenix Dwarf Galaxy. They were able to dock the Callisto at the station with a minimum of administrative rigmarole. 6 months of negotiations between their diplomats and the various alien governments had at least resulted in human beings able to visit most alien commercial locations. In return, visitors were expected to abide by the local laws and practices, though pamphlets explaining those laws and practices were rarely handed out at the entrances. But the Novolume had been their allies in the war, and relations were friendly. More relevantly, except when they were piloting warships, the Novolume were lovers, not fighters, so he and Noah ought to be fine here for a couple of hours. They exited the transport corridor into the main promenade and stopped short in appreciation. The walls of the station were all transparent, revealing the clover and heather profile of the planet spinning below. The floor and ceiling were crafted of milky glassed marble, imposing Novolume elegance upon every square meter of the structure. The design painted a stark contrast to the ubiquitous metal and concrete of human space stations. Other than the outer hull of the station, there were no walls, in the conventional sense. Curtains of spun gossamer marked entry points into shops and restaurants, rippling gently on a non-existent breeze. A diffuse alabaster light bathed everything in a serene, relaxing ambiance. Then a large Dankath barreled across the expansive promenade, breaking the spell. Dankaths were bipedal crustaceans, half again as tall and wide as humans, known for being quick to anger and nearly as quick to throw a punch with their thick, shelled claws. Caleb knew from experience how much agony one of those punches delivered, and let the alien continue on its way before stepping out into the flow of traffic.
If my directions are correct, the club is down here a little farther on the left.
Hold up for a second. I want to run in this store here and buy Kennedy a present in case of emergency. Caleb laughed.
What kind of emergency?
Oh, any one of the 1,000 confrontations, verbal slip-ups, and etiquette faux pas that I am guaranteed to commit before, during, or after this wedding. I need to have something in reserve.
Understood.
While Noah ducked inside the store, Caleb propped against the transparent wall and took in the scenery, mainly the people traversing it. Old intelligence agent habits died hard. Most of the patrons were Novolume, of course, but a healthy minority were Narrated as well. A smattering of Anodans, genetic cousins of humanity, dotted the passing crowd, but not many. 6 months after the ruling directorate fell, tensions remained high between the Novolume and what remained of the Anodan government, not to mention its citizens. Akeso murmured sentiments of ambiguous interest in his mind but didn't express any formed opinions. The planet viewed all aliens as other and had yet to grasp the fine distinctions between species. Caleb spotted 2 Novolume wearing unusually utilitarian attire and striding with great purpose among the patrons. Security? It was odd to see Novolume acting in the role of policing, but it wouldn't surprise him in the slightest if the station owners had expelled Anodan law enforcement immediately upon the Novolume regaining their sovereignty. In their absence, someone had to do the job of keeping order. Noah exited the store folding up a Tussar damask scarf with periwinkle accents and tiny inlaid jewels, which he shoved into his pants pocket. Now, it's taking far too long to get to the drinks portion of the evening. Lead on.
You got it.
They rejoined the foot traffic, took the next left, and stopped in front of a wide, iridescent gossamer curtain. Above it, the awning spelled out the name in silvery light. Starlight Express. He and Noah arched eyebrows at one another, then forged ahead. The curtain parted of its own accord, and they stepped through.
Well, this is a long way from Houston.
Caleb huffed a breath.
It's a long way from Earth, period.
Yep. The marble floor and ceiling of the station's main thoroughfare had been replaced with the transparency of the outer hull. His gaze was drawn down, where 2 megameters beneath his feet, hazy wisps of Noprius atmosphere drifted up toward him. Above them, the light from Noprius's sun filtered through a prism of scatter across the expansive space. The effect was to create an intense sensation of being suspended among the stars. He'd never met a Novolume who dressed modestly, but in here the patrons and employees alike wore the flimsiest, if always stylish, of garments. Streams of gossamer, drapes of gemmed sequins, or solely elaborate body paint. Noah whistled approvingly. "I'll grab a table if you'll get us some drinks. I kind of doubt they'll have beer here, though. Maybe in a few months they'll be stocking it. I'll get the closest they have." Noah nodded distractedly and struck off toward one of the elevated platforms. Caleb picked his way through the crowd to reach the circular bar at the center of the club. Somewhat to his surprise, an F-cam scooted along the inside of the bar to take his order, rather than a drone. But as he considered it, every non-human bar he'd been in since coming to Amaranthe had used an F-cam bartender. What made the glowing, gelatinous blobs such in-demand barkeeps? "I'll have 2 Dublins, thank you." The blob flashed its understanding in orange and yellow and scooted off, then returned with a speed and efficiency that might answer his question. A currency exchange system had been implemented 2 months earlier, so he was able to pay with credits. He nudged his way past a couple of patrons and spotted Noah at a table by one of the platforms. He sat down and slid one of the Dublins over to Noah. "It's not beer, but it is foamy." "Close enough." Noah took a sip, pursed his lips in hesitation, then turned the glass up for a long swig. Caleb wanted to say he knew what his friend was suffering through. He wanted to say he could relate to being consumed by a bundle of nerves the night before the big day, but the truth was, he'd felt only a quiet, warm serenity the night before his wedding to Alex. He'd never been more certain of anything in his life. Still was. He didn't doubt that Noah loved his fiancée with a fierce passion, but the man wasn't just marrying Kennedy. He was marrying the storied Rossi family, fraught as it was with minefields, staged with money and social expectations and centuries of heritage to uphold. Kennedy had tried admirably to eschew much of those trappings in recent years, but you never truly escape family. He wished his friend all the luck. The first round of drinks disappeared in record time, and in an instant after the empty glasses hit the table, an F-can wobbled over to refill them. Responsive service kept the patrons happy and the money flowing. In a tradition that apparently spanned not only species but universes, the alien nearest to them on the elevated platform contorted their body in rhythm to ethereal, high-toned music. Their pearl-like teal skin glistened beneath the subtle lights, sparkling brightly when a spotlight passed across it, and seeming to glow when in the shadows. Novolume's skin didn't glow, not quite, but body paint and complementary lighting could work wonders to fool the senses. Speaking of, he set the glass of Dublin back on the table between him and Noah. It was stronger than he'd expected. Or possibly Akesso's living particles inhabiting his bloodstream weren't able to metabolize it efficiently. Either way, his head was swimming more than he'd intended. Noah leaned forward in his chair wearing a dreamy smile, his gaze following the dancer rapturously while she meandered closer to them. "What an exquisite creature you are. So beautiful." Caleb glanced at the dancer, then at Noah. "Did you take an injection of protium tonight?" "Nah, I've never thought the Novolume were attractive, honestly. Bald generally doesn't do it for me, not until now, but whoa, this is a beautiful woman." He scooted his chair closer to the platform. Caleb's brow furrowed and he gave the dancer a closer inspection. "I think that's a male." Noah's gaze grew more unfocused. "Okay, handsome then. Beautifully handsome." "Yeah." Caleb dug around in his bag for the extra dose of protium he'd grabbed before leaving the loft. All Novolume secreted pheromones that, when in proximity, triggered a strong sexual attraction in most mammalian species. While they claimed not to use it for nefarious purposes, as a society, it clearly helped their kind excel in such varied professions as business, diplomacy, and personal entertainment. Following a couple of high-profile, embarrassing incidents shortly after the displacement, several human pharmaceutical companies had begun mass-producing a serum to counteract the effect of the pheromones. He reached around and unceremoniously injected the serum into Noah's ports at the base of his neck. "Ow!" Noah jerked away, grimacing, and hurriedly took a long sip of his Dublin. "That was not necessary." His attention gradually drifted up to the dancer, now swaying through an acrobatic move. As a frown grew on his lips, he slid the chair back toward the table, and back another meter. Oh, damn, was I drooling over an alien dude? Like a 10-year-old getting his very first furtive glimpse of a naked woman in a vid. Noah's head dropped into his hands. Egads, never tell Kennedy. Your secret is safe with me. Oh, crap. I'm getting married in the morning. What am I doing? Relaxing and not thinking about it for a few hours, remember? Caleb stretched his arms over his head, feeling a bit restive. Why don't we take a stroll and check out some of the safer attractions? Good idea. I need a palate cleanser. Noah stood and looked around, except I don't see any safer attractions. Fair enough. Let's take a stroll anyway. They took their drinks and wandered off. The exotic dancers were, in fact, far from the only entertainment the Starlight Express provided. High above them, trapeze artists performed death-defying stunts in midair, leaping into the embrace of the stars above and hovering in apparent weightlessness for an eternity. Elaborate, interpretive dances were being performed in a mini-arena off to the left, and to the right, a long aquarium featured exotic aquatic life doing their own performances. The aquatic aliens he'd never seen before, but by their actions they gave a strong impression of being sentient, and perhaps they were. The Directorate had imprisoned and experimented on dozens of lesser species during its millennia of cruel rule. Past the aquarium, sunken areas hosted games of chance involving, he dared not speculate what. On the other side of the circular bar, a dance floor, packed with graceful gyrations of Novolume patrons, obscured a curtained-off enclave for more private pursuits of pleasure. Caleb sighed quietly. He was honestly a little disappointed. For all that the club featured exquisite architecture and a host of exotic and alluring aliens, it was still just a club. It seemed no matter the species, what living beings wanted most to do was relax, and they wanted to do so by drinking, dancing, betting, and getting off. Not that there was anything wrong with those pursuits. The jarring noises of a minor commotion over to the left stole Caleb's attention, and he nudged Noah in that direction. A narrator woman in a fluorescent dress snatched her arm away from a strapping Anadan man in fatigues. "I said leave me alone! I'm not your plaything!" The Anadan man towered over her, all muscle and menace. Many referred to Nareda as fairies on account of their small, lithe bodies, delicate bone structure, feathery hair, and enormous eyes, and the comparison was an apt one. The woman barely came to the man's chest, and he could surely crush her bones with a single squeeze of his fist. "Nareda have always been our playthings. Now come here and sit on my lap." The man reached for her with both hands, but she nimbly slipped away. "Not any longer, you freaktos kolos. The humans freed us from your tyranny. And you know what that means, cretin? It means you can't tell me what to do any longer. You go crawl back in the gutter. I bet somebody down there will let you paw on them." The woman glided off into the crowd, head high in defiance. The Anadan man growled and jumped after her, but Caleb moved into his path. "You heard the lady. She wants to be left alone." "Get out of my way!" The man tried to shove Caleb aside. Though he was far bulkier than Caleb easily held his ground. The man settled for maneuvering around him, and Caleb matched him step for step. When the man fainted and darted in the other direction, Noah stepped up as well. "Dude, don't be an asshole. There are plenty of eye-catching women here that you can pay to tell you they love you. Let this one go." The man sputtered, sending spittle flying. "You filthy humans are so arrogant. You barge into town and tear down our government, then start telling us how we have to be nice to each other. Now you're barging into our clubs and telling us what kind of fun we can and can't have? Bullshit. Go back to your own universe and torment somebody else." Caleb shrugged mildly, even as every muscle tensed in preparation. "Can't. Our universe is gone. You're stuck with us." "You wait. We will grind you under our heel. Teach you what Anadan power really means." "Maybe, but not tonight." "What if it is tonight?" The Anadan angled his arm back, telegraphing the punch. Caleb bent his knees to easily drop below the punch, then reversed his momentum and kneed the man in the crotch. Anadan anatomy was human anatomy, more or less, and the man fell to his knees in agony. Caleb felt a surge of nausea in his gut, accompanied by a vague sense of rising confusion. His planetary companion abhorred violence, but it was also possible he'd vicariously gotten the planet a mite drunk, probably for the best, given what was about to follow. One of the Anodin's buddies seized Caleb from behind, pinning his arms. Caleb instantly snapped his head back, crashing his skull into the assailant's nose. The captor's grip loosened, and Caleb twisted in time to see Noah throw a gut punch at a third assailant. When Noah's fist connected, the recipient went flying 10 meters through the air to crash into an occupied table. Food and drinks and bodies scattered. Damn, Noah. Noah twisted his arm around, wearing a grin. Synthetic arm, remember? Awfully useful at times like this. To be honest, Caleb had all but forgotten that Noah had once seen an arm and much of a shoulder amputated and replaced with synthetic versions after nearly dying during an attack on one of his and Kennedy's manufacturing plants. Regardless, his friend was correct. It did have its uses. Except for one problem. By crashing the assailant into an occupied table, Noah had just lit a wildfire, sending the violence spreading freely throughout the rear half of the club. Shouts and shoves rapidly escalated to punches and kicks. Most involved didn't have the faintest idea why they were fighting. Such was the way of bar fights the universe over. He got distracted for a moment, watching the oddly elegant, almost dance-like manner in which Novolume brawled, and as such completely missed the punch that arrived from his left. He staggered sideways, his ears ringing and jaw throbbing, but years of intelligence agent training and field work came rushing back, and he pushed past the momentary pain to regain his balance and assume a defensive stance. The man who'd delivered the punch charged him, and abruptly one of the high bars, along with its trapeze artist, crashed down atop the man, sending them all into a pile of limbs on the floor. Caleb skirted around the tangled bodies and rushed forward to tackle the initial Anodin provocateur, an instant before he bum-rushed Noah from behind. They skidded across the floor until the Anodin's head slammed into the far wall. Caleb took the opportunity to deliver a solid uppercut under the man's chin, then scrambled to his feet and backed away, watching to see if the Anodin got up again. A long rod swung for his legs, and he leapt into the air, pulling his knees in toward his chest as the rod passed barely a centimeter beneath his feet. A petite Narrated man in a spangly emerald leotard was using a broken length of one of the high bars as a pole staff, swinging it around at anyone who drew near. What the hell had they kicked off here? The serene, almost halcyonic club they'd walked into earlier this evening now hosted a veritable riot. Oops. He ducked and veered his way past two scuffles to reach Noah, who was trying to dodge some martial arts-flavored fisticuffs between two Narrated women, then grabbed his hand. Let's get out of here. Like last time, smart thinking. A flash of light on metal drew 100% of Caleb's focus. He pivoted to the right as, by the far wall, the Anodin man had climbed to his feet, pulled out a firearm, and was leveling it at Noah's head. Long-honed instincts drove Caleb's actions before his brain caught up. His right hand went to his belt, where it unlatched and drew the hilt of his blade. His arm cocked and his finger depressed the trigger. A spear of plasma shot out from the hilt and streaked across the room, narrowly missing two tumbling bodies before it sliced the Anodin's hand clean off at the wrist. Oh, this manner of escalation was not good. As blood began spurting from the severed wrist and the Anodin began screaming above the din, Caleb hastily surveyed the room. Now we really do need to get out of here. Follow me. His eyes marked out the path of least resistance from here to the front doors. He only hoped they hadn't locked the club down. Halt! In the periphery of Caleb's vision, 4 Novolume security officers pressed in from the fringes of the brawl. A blinding flash swept across the club, and everything went dark. Now. Caleb ran fingertips over the blank panel by the cell's force field. When nothing happened, he tested out the field with the hem of his shirt. A hot sizzle left the flannel charred. Have you ever broken out of an alien jail? Actually, yes. I did have help, though, but I've broken out of human jails plenty of times. 3 times, anyway. No, wait, 4. In your former life? Yep. It occasionally came with the work. Caleb felt along the barely visible seams along the edge of the panel. But there wasn't enough room to jimmy a blade behind it. He patted his pockets. Also, his blade had been confiscated while he was unconscious, so his initial plan was dust. He inventoried the rest of the cell, but there wasn't much to see. Blank walls, 2 benches built into the walls with attached shackles that their jailers mercifully had opted not to use, and a narrow ventilation shaft in the ceiling. No toilet or cots meant this was a temporary holding cell. He rubbed at his forehead, thinking, "The good news is, it's doubtful the local authorities have been able to identify us. Aegis doesn't yet have an information-sharing agreement with any of the alien law enforcement agencies, so even if they took DNA samples, they don't have anything to compare them to. So if we can get out of this cell and away clean, away clean. And if not, we'll get it sorted. We weren't the instigators in there." "True, but you did sever a guy's hand." Caleb's attention returned to the ventilation shaft in the ceiling. "I definitely did, but he was about to shoot you." "Seriously? Thanks for the save. You are one handy friend to have around." His gaze cut dubiously to Noah, who shrugged. "Oh, too soon? Fine, too soon. So what do you think? Are we getting out of here?" He tried sending a message to Alex, but it bounced. Not surprising, as most confinement facilities used comm blocks, likely wormhole blocks too, so taking an intergalactic shortcut was off the table. His eyes went to the ventilation shaft for the 3rd time. "Hand me your shirt." Why?" "I'm going to use it to clog up the ventilation shaft. Air doesn't pass through the force field, so when it stops flowing in here, an alarm will go off and someone will arrive to fix it. When they shut off the force field, we'll overpower them." "Huh, might work, I suppose." Noah started tugging his shirt over his head, then stopped. "Why don't we use your shirt?" "Because yours already has an ugly tear in it." "What?" Noah finished removing his shirt and glowered at the 15-centimeter-long rip in the left arm. "Ah, I love this shirt." "We'll get out of this mess, get home, and you survive the wedding, and you can get a new one." The shop on Messium I bought it from got blown up during the war. My favorite shirt." Noah sighed and handed it over. Caleb bunched it up in one hand and climbed up on one of the benches. "Put that high-powered arm of yours to good use and give me a boost up." "You got it." Noah wound his hands together, and Caleb placed a foot in the cradle. Noah lifted with a grunt, and Caleb reached up to dig his fingertips into the grates of the ventilation shaft. He brought the shirt up in his other hand and stuffed the material through the openings, weaving it in and out until it completely blocked the airflow. "There." He leaped to the floor and peered up to inspect his handiwork. Satisfied, he sank back onto the bench and motioned for Noah to do the same. "Act as if you've passed out from the lack of oxygen. When the guards they send get inside the cell, we'll take them by surprise." Noah hesitated. "Wait, aren't we literally going to pass out from the lack of oxygen?" Caleb worked to relax his posture, then closed his eyes. "Breathe shallow." "Nice job." Caleb snatched the guard in the hall by one arm and dragged him back into the cell, and they secured both guards with the restraints. Noah frowned. "Is that guy all right?" "He's merely unconscious. The Novolume aren't built for street fighting. Let's take their weapons just in case." "Of more shooting?" Noah grumbled even as he fished a small, sleek handgun off of one of the guards' belts. "Hopefully not." Caleb did the same, latching the weapon to his belt where his blade usually went. "You okay?" "A little winded, but the fresh air from the hall is helping. I'll be fine." "Good, let's move quickly." He checked the hall in both directions before heading to the left. The jail was tiny, so he doubted they saw a lot of violence on a station of this caliber. In 2 turns, they had reached the lobby, where a guard sat facing the exit, looking bored. Caleb held a finger to his lips, then crept forward. The sounds of general revelry wafted in from the promenade to mask what minimal sound he made, and the guard was barely starting to come to attention when he palm-chopped him in the back of the neck. It was a move designed to cause maximum unconsciousness with minimum permanent damage. The officer collapsed onto the desk and didn't move again. He motioned Noah forward, and they strolled casually out the front door and joined the flow of pedestrians in the main thoroughfare. Noah was shirtless, but given the nature of the station, he fit right in. Caleb rounded the corner in the transport corridor, then backed up and urged Noah up against the wall. He held his breath and peeked around the corner. 3 Novolume security officers stood guard at the airlock where the Callisto was docked. The airlock also sported a new force field blocking entry. Farther down the corridor, another officer patrolled to the next junction in a loop. He reversed course and calmly led them back out of the transport wing. When they reached the promenade, Noah grabbed him by the arm.
"What have they done to my ship?" "Impounded it. There are 4 guards and a force field that I don't know how to disable." He shook his head. "I don't think we can take them all, not without risking real injuries, and I don't want to be responsible for dead law enforcement who were simply doing their jobs." "Crap." Noah's hand worked at his jaw. "I thought you said they wouldn't know who we are." "I don't think they do, but the security system took image captures of us when we departed the ship. It's SOP. If they compared the footage of the fight in the Starlight Express, they would have gotten a match and tied us to the ship. So we're trapped here? Let me message Alex. She should be able to open a wormhole here on the station, and we can be in Houston 5 minutes from now." "No, absolutely not. Kennedy cannot find out what has happened here." "She's going to find out when you have to get the Callisto unimpounded." "Sure, but it'll be after the wedding. Divorcing me is a lot more work than simply not marrying me in the first place, which will give me time to calm her down and appeal to her enduring love for me. Ugh, God, or something like that." He was tempted to ignore Noah's pleas and message Alex anyway, because it was without a doubt the easiest solution to their quandary. But he recognized the far greater problems doing so would create for his friend, and he was the one who had gotten them into this mess. First by bringing Noah here at all. Truly, Seaview Tap down the street would have sufficed for a relaxing evening. Then by interfering in an interpersonal dispute that wasn't his business. He wasn't an intelligence agent any longer, but he still hated bullies. It was time for a new plan. "We could borrow someone else's ship." "You want to steal a ship?" "I said borrow. We'll absolutely return it, once we're done with it." "I like where this is going," Noah said. "But there won't be any ships here with wormhole drives, will there?" "No. I've only seen 2 other humans since we got here, and our wormhole drives are in the prototype stage, so they aren't apt to be installed on a random personal craft. Let me think. Novolume superliminal drives are faster than ours." He checked the time. "We can head for the Phoenix Dwarf Milky Way gateway, then shoot over to the connection to the Centaurus gateway. From there we can speed home. We should reach Earth with 30 or so minutes to spare." 30 minutes? You gotta be kidding me. I didn't say it wouldn't be close. Noah threw his hands in the air. "What are we waiting for? No time to waste." They bought Novolume-style jackets and hats in the closest store, which should be enough of a disguise to slip unnoticed past the transport wing cameras. They took a different entrance into the wing and began hunting for a suitable ship to pilfer. Thankfully, security was light, as this was an entertainment hub, not a government facility, and they were free to stroll around and gawk at the docked ships through the transparent hull. After several minutes of searching, they came upon a personal Novolume craft docked at the edge of one of the arms, which meant an easier departure path. The craft looked brand new, sporting a spotless, translucent, opalescent hull and what Caleb assessed to be an upscale superliminal engine tucked into its belly. "This is the one." Noah tilted his head as he studied the craft. "Nice choice. Kennedy would approve. What now?" "Now I try to hack the security on the airlock." He pulled his multi-tool out of his pack, grateful the officers had missed it in their search, and studied the control panel. "This tool is programmed to hack a variety of locks, but I've never used it on Novolume tech before." He peered down the corridor. "Keep an eye out for unwanted guests." Noah wandered to the first junction and leaned casually on the station's hull as if he were waiting for a friend. Caleb scrolled through the settings on the multi-tool. Novolume, decryption, access code. He located the tiny contact point on the side used to access the panel's settings and placed the multi-tool's output pad over it. A slowly flashing yellow light was the only sign it was functioning. He waited. "Hey, I know you. From Starlight Express." He glanced over to see Noah trying to block someone from coming down the corridor. Judging from the breathy, high-pitched voice and the fact he couldn't see the person past Noah's frame, he'd guess a Narrated woman. "You're one of those guys who helped me get that freak Dos Golos's paws off of me." A head with feathery primrose hair peeked around Noah's torso. "And you too. By the airlock. Thank you." Noah retreated a step, trying valiantly to block the corridor. You're welcome. He was being an asshole.
Most Denardins are. The head reappeared. What are you doing over there? Caleb pivoted to hide the control panel and the device attached to it.
Waiting for our friend before we head out.
Oh, it was only the two of you in the club, wasn't it? Her gaze flitted to the ship docked outside. Is your friend a Novolume? Because I've never heard of a human flying a Novolume ship.
We've only been here for 6 months. There's probably a lot of things you've never heard about humans.
I don't know. I hear a lot. She sidestepped Noah with the grace of a cat and strolled boldly toward him. Behind her, Noah rolled his eyes at the heavens and jogged after her.
Hey, ma'am.
I left as soon as I escaped the clutches of the Anodin, but when I swung back by the club later, it looked as if a bomb had detonated inside. You didn't get arrested, did you? I also heard there was a jailbreak a few minutes ago.
Caleb gave her a closed-mouth smile. You do hear a lot, don't you? We got clear, though.
Of the fight or the jail?
Funny, huh? We really need to be... In a flash, she had darted around him, ducked, and stuck her face right up to the control panel.
I knew it! You're trying to steal this ship!
Borrow.
Her eyes cut up to him, dancing in amusement. Ha! It's all the same to me. I don't know the owner.
Caleb sighed. What can I do to convince you not to run off and tell the authorities?
Oh, I'm not going to do that. In fact, I think I'm going to help you. Just a little, on account of you helping me earlier.
Noah shrugged at Caleb, and he reluctantly shifted to the side to fully reveal the control panel. The yellow light was still blinking, which meant the multi-tool hadn't made much progress. We're on a tight schedule, so we won't refuse the help. What can you do? She studied the control panel for several seconds before dancing away.
Novolume commercial access codes always follow the same pattern. Letter, letter, letter. Number, number. Letter, symbol, letter, number. Knowing this should speed up your decryption contraption, shouldn't it?
He nodded in appreciation. It will, thank you.
For certain.
She started striding off, then turned to face them as she backed down the corridor.
Oh, and thanks for the whole going to war, destroying the Directorate, and defeating the Anodin stuff, too. The Cretan in the Starlight Express was for shite, but he no longer has the force and authority of a dictatorship behind him. Good job.
Well, that wasn't us specifically, more the human military generally, but you're welcome. In fact, Caleb had played an oversized role in the victory, one that had also led to his temporary death, but he wasn't about to recount the story to a stranger. She grinned, spun again, and glided away. He removed the multi-tool from the panel, reprogrammed it with the new information, and placed it back on the contact point. Come on. The light turned green almost instantly, as did a fluorescent border around the control panel. The airlock hissed quietly as it slid open. Yes! Noah pulled in a fist as he approached the open airlock. Let's go. I have a wedding to get to. At least his friend was sounding more enthusiastic about the nuptials than earlier in the evening. They stepped through the opening, and Caleb tapped the matching panel on the interior to close the airlock behind them. A short ramp led to a seal around a closed hatch. It's locked, isn't it? Can we not catch a break? Caleb smiled. We already did with our friend back there. He felt around to the side of the hatch for the difference in texture marking the ship's virtual entry panel. When his fingers grazed across it, a series of button outlines lit up on the hull. He double-checked the readout from the multi-tool and entered the code. The hatch slid open. It was the same code? It was. Most people are lazy and reuse their personal access codes when they visit places. Making a note to not do so in the future. Noah checked the small cabin, then the cockpit. You know, the lady made an excellent point. Have you ever flown a Novolume ship before? I have not. Caleb placed a hand on the tall back of the pilot's chair and scrutinized the HUD before him. Similar to the hull, and to everything else the Novolume designed, the dash was all elegance and smooth curving lines. Ice blue lights contrasted with the glass to highlight what appeared to be essential functions. He reached out and placed a fingertip on a rectangular lighted area, and a virtual readout blinked into existence above the dash. A high-level report on ship systems. Key markers on the list helped him identify several other dash elements, and after another moment, he nodded to himself and sat in the pilot's chair. He cracked his knuckles and fastened the restraints, then motioned to the second cockpit chair. Have a seat and buckle in. You can do this? I can do these. He'd been flying starships for over 20 years, and in recent years he'd learned a great deal about how the vessels operated from Alex. Which systems were modular, which were optional, and which were always required, how control systems worked, what systems were dependent on others, and so on. When it came down to it, there weren't that many ways to design a starship. The hull shapes and interior details varied, but the engines were always similar, or at a minimum, how one directed and managed them. He pressed a button highlighted with extra brightness and felt the impulse engine purr to life beneath their feet. A screen materialized a smidge above eye level. Thankfully, his EVI translator was now well-versed in Novol. Depart station dock? Green and red buttons floated below the question. He selected the green one, hoping such labels transcended species. There was a slight bump as the ship detached from the clamps. Then they were floating in space. He exhaled a huge sigh of relief and checked the time. It was going to be close, but they were free. The navigation controls pulsed icy blue in front of him. He placed the fingertips of both hands on them and eased the ship away from the station. Since this is the Novolume homeworld, a gateway is nearby, on the fringes of the stellar system. We'll take it to the Milky Way, at which point it's only one more gateway until... Unauthorized occupant of vessel NVP C36A5. Return to the station immediately and present yourself for detainment. The hell? Noah's palm hit the dashboard. Caleb groaned. There must have been a silent intruder alarm on the airlock or keyed to the flight controls being activated. Anyone wealthy enough to own a ship this nice presumably wants to protect it. Then why didn't we steal a clunker? Borrow. A clunker never would get us to Earth in time for your nuptials. He increased the engine's thrust to accelerate away from the station. At this rate, neither will this one. Have a little faith. You've seen what I can do with a ship. If you mean crash one into other ships, yes, I've seen it. How about we not pull a repeat of that escapade? Caleb chuckled under his breath. We repeat. Unauthorized occupant of vessel NVP C36A5. Return to the station immediately. If you do not comply, you will be fired upon. Noah snorted. That's not likely to protect the owner's precious ship. I doubt the authorities care. This is about a crime in progress now. Yes, our crime. Ugh. Noah sagged deeper into the chair and dragged his hands down his face. Kennedy is gonna kill me. Then kick me out onto the street. Then kill me a second time. We're not going to get arrested. Again. The gateway was too close to their location to activate the superliminal engine, so he pushed the impulse engine to full power, leaving the station to swiftly fade away behind them. But 2 radar signals followed. If he could get through the wormhole gateway with enough lead time, maybe he'd be able to lose them on the other side. This is your final warning. Did the ship have any defensive capabilities? It obviously had radiation shielding, but what about impact shielding? He glanced back at the system's readout and pointed to a line in the 3rd column. See that symbol there? Find it on the HUD for me while I concentrate on flying. Got it. Noah unfastened his restraints, stood and came over to lean in beside Caleb. His pointer finger followed his eyes. There it is. Thanks. Strap back in because we're about to get shot at. Fabulous. Noah fell into the chair and hurriedly fastened the restraints. Caleb activated the button Noah had indicated, and the ring around it flared yellow. He hoped it meant he'd just engaged the ship's defensive shield. The radar blips closed in. Crap, they were fast. Of course they were fast. There were also Novolume vessels and law enforcement ones at that. An alarm rang out to announce they'd been fired upon, and a new screen materialized to track the approaching fire. He waited. When the laser was 400 meters away, he jerked the nose down, then strafed hard to starboard. The screen went silent. Miss. But 2 additional shots were already on the way. In the distance, the Phoenix Dwarf Milky Way gateway grew large in the viewport, a gigantic hulk of metal surrounding a blazing wormhole. He pointed the nose of the ship up and strafed to port this time. A renewed alarm screeched as the laser streaked by less than 20 meters away. Too close, but now there are all these other ships around. They won't risk shooting at us in all this traffic, will they? New signals materialized on the tactical screen. Yes, they will. The rippling plasma of the wormhole gateway now filled the viewport. He pushed the engine harder, all the way to the safety limit. We're going to beat the lasers to the gateway. Yay?
He didn't technically know what would happen to the laser fire when it hit the dimensional shift of the wormhole. Presumably it would pass through, but the angle should get distorted, right? "Hey, how are things going?" He blinked. "Hi, baby. Good. What's up?" 5 kilometers to the gateway. "Kennedy's dad wants to talk to Noah before the ceremony. I shudder to think about what, so I was wondering when the two of you are getting here. Soon, right? I mean, it's less than 2 hours until showtime." Was it? Soon. Noah got a touch extra hammered last night, and there was a glitch with his EVI's alcohol cleansing routine, but we're getting it taken care of. Then we'll be along straight away. They slammed into the plasma of the gateway and hurtled across 442 kiloparsecs, 7 galaxies, and the interstellar void between them a solid 3 seconds before the laser fire reached them. He blinked, and they were out the other side, with the companion ARC's space station towering to their port. No sign of pursuers, but he adopted a zigzag pattern anyway, feinting to starboard before diving on the Z-axis, then shifting their heading toward the next galaxy, 12 kiloparsecs away. "Remember, you promised to get him here alive and on time." "I know I did, baby. Not to worry. I'll see you soon." Not to worry even a tiny bit. The radar had lost the laser fire in the transition, but 2 dots now rematerialized on a tracking trajectory. What? Was the ship blinking out a distress call in every direction? Come to think of it? It probably was. "Unauthorized occupant of vessel MVP C36A5. Cut your engines and prepare to be boarded. If you do not comply, you will be terminated with extreme prejudice." Since when is execution an allowable punishment for theft? Caleb shrugged, which was when he realized how tense his muscles were. "Perhaps it is in the Novolume legal system." "They never struck me as the bloodthirsty type." "True, but they do take great pride in their creations. Theft might be a high crime for them." "It would have been fantastic to know that before we stole one of their ships." "Borrowed. I'm determined to find a way to return it to its owner, and I wasn't aware we had a lot of alternatives." "We didn't. Man, I should have gritted my teeth and stayed in Houston, taken a walk, gotten a little fresh air, maybe raided future daddy-in-law's liquor cabinet." Caleb laughed. "In retrospect, it would have been the better choice, but this is my fault and I will make it right." "It's not your fault. I showed up all pathetic and begging to be entertained." "Well, I've been entertained, so thank you for delivering." A new alarm screeched. "Missile lock confirmed." He checked to see if they'd attained sufficient distance from the arcs, then engaged the superliminal engine. Space warped around them, and the stars and the missile they ferried blurred away. He exhaled harshly and unfastened the restraints, which he'd been wrenching against for the last many minutes, and rubbed at his left shoulder. "Don't get too comfortable. It's only 8 minutes until we reach the Centaurus gateway. They can't track us through superliminal, though. We should be good now." "But they can guess where we're headed, can't they?" Caleb dropped his chin to his chest. This might not be over yet after all. "Because they figure the 2 humans who escaped from custody are the same people who stole the sheep, and where would humans flee to except human space? I'm just saying." "But human space encompasses 900 square kiloparsecs, thousands of star systems, and over 100 inhabited worlds. And we're going to spend the next 8 minutes figuring out how to disable whatever distress signal this ship is sending." "Excellent idea." Noah lowered himself to the floor and started to remove the panel covering the lower dash, then sank to his elbows. "They confiscated my blade. How do we get this panel off?" "Mine too." He glanced behind them. "Scrounge around in the cabin for eating utensils, I guess." While Noah headed into the cabin, Caleb scoured the HUD for a way to stop all communications. While he comprehended the novel language, he didn't understand the purposes of half the symbolic shorthand the HUD used. Novel was full of characters with fancy ligatures and cursive writing, and they honestly more closely resembled hieroglyphs than letters. He followed what he suspected were hazard symbols, 3 layers deep, and... "Hey, I found it." "Yeah?" Noah appeared at his shoulder holding a flat-bladed knife. "Deactivate theft alert?" "Yes." He pressed the green circle. "Identity mismatch. Deactivation unsuccessful." "Damn it." Noah lay on the floor, wedging the knife into the tiny seam between 2 panels. With a twist, one of the panels fell away, and Caleb joined him on the floor. A bank of linked quantum orbs greeted them, all glowing brilliant white from activity. Photo fibers connected them to a series of equally lit modules, then wound into the interior of the ship's hull.
I don't see any helpful labels. No, Caleb pinched the bridge of his nose. I can't tell which one is a communication module, and if I destroy the wrong one, we're dead in the void. Or we suffocate, or succumb to any one of several additional horrible fates.
A beep sounded to alert them they were approaching their destination, and he climbed into the pilot's chair and disengaged the superliminal engine. A different set of stars snapped back into focus, and radar picked up the next gateway 5 megameters away. He re-engaged the impulse engine and accelerated toward it. There was far too much traffic for him to determine if they still had a tail, but the ship didn't announce any new missile locks. Then they were through the wormhole gateway, exiting near the massive Centaurus arcs, technically 3 separate stations connected by flexi passages, situated midway between Sol and Alpha Centauri.
Almost there. I admit, I am both astonished and exceedingly grateful. So am I. You might want to hit the lavatory while you've got the chance. You've got a scrape on your cheek, some dried blood on your nose and your hair. Well, it looks as if you got into a bar fight, got arrested, and spent some time unconscious in a jail cell. Shit, it must.
Noah stood and headed back into the cabin.
Do you think we're in the clear? I hope so. If there's a range limit on the distress call, we should be safe. I doubt many human sheeps are outfitted to interpret Novolume communications.
Noah's response was muffled by the sound of running water.
Hey, do the Novolume know that humans live on planets other than Earth?
Caleb frowned.
The government leaders obviously do, but local private law enforcement?
A sinking feeling nagged at his gut as he realized there was a reasonable chance their pursuers would in fact head straight for Earth. Neither he nor Noah actually lived on Earth, but it did remain the cultural heart of human society, and if the Novolume knew anything about humans, they surely knew this. In the back of his mind, he started working on a decidedly suboptimal contingency plan.
We're hitting the edge of the Sol stellar system.
Great. Noah reappeared in the cockpit and perched on the edge of his chair.
Is it wrong that I can't tell if these butterflies in my stomach are because I'm worried about being shot down or about swearing my eternal life and love to another person? Not wrong at all. But while I'll do everything I can to get us to Houston, you can only control one of those things.
Noah winced.
Are you asking me if I want to call it off? Not necessarily. It's normal to be nervous. Were you? Well, no. But I accept not being normal. Also, I didn't have to say my vows in front of 600 people. Oh, I'm getting heart palpitations simply thinking about it, but I love her. God, how I love that woman. It's everything else which comes with her that's got me wrecked. If you truly do love her, then the rest can't matter. And it doesn't, except for when it does. I'll be honest, at this point I just want to get married, leave the aftermath to her parents, and run away for 2 weeks to Atlantis with my bride. I hear you. Let's make it happen. Exiting superliminal.
They returned to normal space, a sliver of a megameter inside Earth's outer defense relay. Hopefully no one noticed the slight regulatory violation. The automated system requested an authorization number, and Caleb started entering his personal ID, which carried the highest clearance. Vessel MVP C36A5, prepare to be boarded immediately or you will be terminated with extreme prejudice.
I guess Earth is the only human planet they know, Caleb grumbled. Can we?
The Earth Terrestrial Defense interjected.
Occupants of vessel MVP C36A5, we have been informed that you are suspected of various crimes committed in Novolume space. Surrender to the Novolume authorities, or you will be taken into custody and processed for extradition.
Lucky that he hadn't gotten a chance to enter his credentials. As it stood now, neither set of authorities knew who was on board the ship. Missile lock confirmed. Earth was now an enormous blue orb filling the viewport. If he could avoid this one, Novolume law enforcement shouldn't dare risk firing missiles any closer to the planet. But once they were in Earth jurisdiction, they'd be arrested by local law enforcement, which wasn't much of an improvement. He jerked the ship hard to starboard and fled on an arc parallel to the planet below. But there wasn't nearly as much room to maneuver now, and the missile drew closer. Another course correction 20 degrees to starboard.
Brace for impact.
The hull shuddered a second later, and his body jerked painfully in the restraints. His head snapped forward, then ricocheted against the headrest. Shields at 62%. His hands came to his mouth. "We have to get off the ship. Let me have Alex open a wormhole right here in the cabin." "No. Getting arrested is better than the scandal certain to overtake the Rossi clan if the details of this disastrous adventure get out." "Damn it, Noah. Okay, what about Mia? Alex said she was already at the wedding venue." Noah grimaced, but nodded. "I can accept this as a workable compromise. She'll never let me live it down, though. Neither of us." He hurriedly sent a message to their mutual friend, grateful she was one of the special few people who, like his wife, possessed the rarefied ability to open wormholes through the fabric of space-time, anytime, anywhere. "Hi, Mia. Can you get to the groom's dressing room quickly? Once there, I need you to open a wormhole to my coordinates." "Where are you? People are starting to whisper conspiracy theories, and Alex is pouring wine down Kennedy's throat to keep her from hyperventilating." Because it was now 10 minutes until the wedding was scheduled to start. Of course all those things were happening. "You'll see. Please. And also hurry." "On the way, but your coordinates are changing too fast to get a lock. You're on a ship, I assume? Stop the ship." "I'll slow down as much as I can." "Slow down a lot." "We've got to slow our speed so Mia can get a fix on our location to open the wormhole. This will guarantee any weapons fire will hit us, so be ready to dive through the wormhole as soon as it opens." Noah unfastened the restraints again and stood. "I am." Missile lock confirmed. Great. Noah grabbed hold of the overhead frame, while Caleb frantically tried to dodge the missile. But 2 orbital stations were situated dead ahead, and commercial travel was getting thick with ships. Ugh. The Novolume should know better than to be firing missiles in this traffic. At this rate, they were apt to cause an interspecies diplomatic incident when relations were still at a fragile and evolving state. The missile closed to 14 kilometers. 10. The hull shuddered violently, sending Noah tumbling into the cabin. The restraints barely stopped Caleb's head from slamming into the dash. New alarms rang out. Shields at 31%. They couldn't take a third hit. "I'm in the groom's dressing room. Slow down!" He unfastened his restraints, hit a hard stop on the impulse engine, and rushed into the cabin. "We're ready. Now, please." "1 second." Missile lock confirmed. The air in the center of the cabin began to shimmer. He didn't check behind him to monitor the approaching missile. There existed only one path forward now. A golden ring formed on the outer of the shimmer, and beyond it lay a wallpapered room with a couch and a clothes rack. Mia peered through the opening in interest. "This is a Novolume ship?" "Not for long it isn't." Caleb shoved Noah through the opening and stumbled through after him. He spun around as soon as he was through the other side in time to watch the wormhole flicker out with an extra flare of light. So much for borrowing. Noah was lying on the carpet, his arms spread wide. "Oh, wow, that sucked." Caleb offered Noah a hand, and after a beat his friend accepted it and climbed to his feet. Mia stared at them both incredulously. "What just happened?" Noah clasped her by a shoulder, knocking her velvet shawl down her arm. "Listen, you can never whisper a word of what you saw to Kennedy, to Alex, to anyone at this event, or existing in explored space. Ever." Mia's lips twitched in amusement. "Very well, but I'm going to extract a price for my silence. I'll let you know what it is in due time. For now, the 2 of you have approximately 90 seconds to get into your tuxedos. I hear the introductory music starting." Sure enough, the dulcet tones of Claire de Lune began drifting through the walls. Noah lunged for the clothes rack, tossed a hanging suit to Caleb, then stripped off the wrapping of his tux with one hand while he unfastened and dropped his work pants with the other. Mia made a face and pivoted for the door. "It would be inappropriate for me to get flashed by you on your wedding day. I'll be in touch about that price." She flitted out the door in a swoosh of velvet. Caleb stripped to his underwear as well, shirt down over his head, pants up over his legs, fancy belt, fancy tie, fancy shoes. "Is everything in the proper place?" Noah turned in a circle, arms held out beside him. The transformation was admittedly impressive, and Caleb chuckled approvingly. "No one would ever guess how you spent your last 15 hours. God and the stars willing, no one will ever guess." A knock rapped at the door. "Are you all ready?" "Alex." He checked himself in the mirror on the wall, frowned, and ran fingers through his hair. It would have to do. He went to the door and opened it. His wife stood on the other side, her hair pinned up to tumble down in a waterfall of burgundy curls. Her eyes shone glittering platinum, and the silken material of a rich jade dress clung to her willowy figure. He smiled.
"You look incredible."
"And you look dashing, and also a little like you got roused from a nap. Anyway, it's time."
"We're right behind you."
She headed back down the wide, high-ceilinged hallway, and he turned to Noah.
"Are you ready to do this?"
Noah sucked in a deep breath and nodded.
"I'm ready."